Devontae Adams released. Now DK Metcalf demanding a trade. The Packers are going to have some veteran receiver options. Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks, who broke the first DK Metcalf trade story, joins us on today's show.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Joining me now from Locked On Seahawks, Corbin Smith. Corbin, you have been all over the DK Metcalf reporting. And what makes this so funny is you and I were at the Combine in Indy. And I remember we're waiting to talk to some of these players. I believe John Schneider had already spoken when we talked. And I was like, hey, what do you think about DK Metcalf? Could he be on the move? Packer fans want him. And you were like, I don't think so. And then just a couple days later, you're reporting not only is that something that is possible, the Packers are one of the teams that talked to him. What changed? What happened? Give us the background here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been able to put a lot of the pieces together this week after I reported that the Packers and the Patriots and one other team that my sources were not connected with had spoken with John Schneider about trying to make this trade happen. And I've done some backtracking, and before the Combine, there were some preliminary talks between DK Metcalf's camp, John Schneider, and the front office. And Metcalf obviously has 1 year left in his deal. So this is the sweet spot where John Schneider likes to get a new contract done. And there was a pretty big, sizable gap in what the Seahawks felt they were going to pay and what DK Metcalf wanted. And the Seahawks view him as a top 10 receiver, but they don't want to pay top 5 money. They don't want to get into that $29-30 million per year range.
It's a lot.
And so that created a bit of a rift right there. And then last week at the Combine, and it is funny because you and I had talked a couple days before this, but got some inklings on Friday morning that there might be something going on, reached out to a few of my credible sources, and quickly found out that Green Bay not only had called, they had put together a package, and they were thinking either Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks, along with a high draft pick, would be able to get DK Metcalf. New England had tried to get to that point in discussions, but Seattle didn't really have any interest because, well, you don't have Wicks or Doubs on your roster. So we're not interested. And whoever the third team was, again, the sources I had are not connected to those teams, but there is a third team sniffing around. If I had to take a guess, I think the Chargers are that other team that is hovering around, and they have been interested in Metcalf for a couple of years, but I don't know that with 100% certainty. I do know Green Bay, and I know that New England both were sniffing around, and Buffalo and Kansas City are paying very close attention. They have been in this entire process to see if maybe they can make a run at DK Metcalf. But the contract situation, and then last week, the discussions, DK Metcalf's camp clearly got wind of this, and now, you guys are talking about trading me. Well, I want to trade it. And that's where we're at now, where it feels like this could be a situation that can't be fixed for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because there are plenty of times when a player says, hey, trade me, and the team goes, we're not doing that. Why would we do that? You're under contract. You're a good player. We're going to keep you. We are not that far removed from Deebo Samuel in San Francisco saying trade me, and they said, no. We're not that far removed from Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco saying trade me, and them saying no. So why do you think this is different in Seattle with DK Metcalf? Because if you're a team wanting to acquire him, you're going, hey, this is a 27, 28-year-old receiver, 1,000 yards. Why would you give up on a guy like that?
Well, I think that this really boils down to the money standpoint, and that's really the elephant in the room here. John Schneider and the front office, and look, this is just my opinion. I can understand why a GM would not want to pay $30 million to a wide receiver. I know there's a few guys in the league that are making that kind of money. Justin Jefferson is that type of an impact player. There are like 2 or 3 receivers in the league you can make that argument for, and as good as DK is, I don't think he belongs there. So I understand from a value standpoint why the Seahawks are, whoa, wait a second. We don't want to go down that pipe. And you can also understand from Metcalf's standpoint, he's 27, but this may be the last chance he has at a monster contract, because if he gets a 4-year deal, he's going to be into his 30s by that point. Yep. And who knows if he gets another big deal. So you can understand both sides. And I think another storyline that has kind of developed here today coming out of this, DK Metcalf wants to be the number 1 receiver. And for a while he was. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba last year came on. And Geno Smith was throwing the ball a lot to him, and he should have been. I mean, the guy gets open. He is a master at getting open and making big plays. I think DK Metcalf felt like in the second half that he was kind of the second wheel, and he doesn't want that. He wants to be the alpha dog in the receiving core. And you also have a new offensive coordinator who doesn't run 3 wide receiver sets very much. Clint Kubiak likes 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 2 tight end sets.
Yeah.
He wants to go old school. So the need for having a bunch of good receivers doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's why it would also make sense for the Seahawks to say what we'd like in a trade is another receiver. We'd like a young player coming back, because if you're moving on from DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett is no longer in the picture, when we talked on Locked On Sports today, you pointed out this came to light 20 minutes after the team announced that they were releasing Tyler Lockett in a move that, you know, we all expected to happen. We didn't expect DK Metcalf to demand a trade. They need some bodies. So it makes sense for them to say, hey, you know what we'd really like? Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks. And though I can't confirm that piece of it, I do know that there were conversations, or I was told that there were conversations being had there. And so that's what makes this really interesting. I mean, it seems even silly at this point to make it seem like if this were, you know, 5 days ago when we reported this, that, oh, now something is so different, even though this is, you know, weeks in the making here. What do you think a package has to look like to get this deal done?
I think with the fact that DK Metcalf has now kind of forced the hand a little bit, you know, there's a lot of people that are going to say, well, that takes leverage away from the Seahawks. And I can understand that argument. Yeah. But at the same time, this is not a very good receiver draft class. Like, we've seen all these really dominant draft classes.
Not at the top for sure.
This year does not, at least at the top. There's some depth in the middle. But if you're looking for a DK Metcalf, like, there's not a dude like that. Most draft classes, there's not. Let's be honest. But Metcalf, you're not going to be able to find somebody that you can plug and play that's going to be offering the physical tools and the production that what DK Metcalf has. And so the idea that teams are not going to be willing to give up a first rounder or early second rounder for him, like, you know how fans are. We've seen plenty of people, well, Deebo Samuel went for a 5th. Let's give a 5th for Metcalf. Metcalf does not have the injury history or the durability concerns that Deebo Samuel has. And right. Deebo Samuel was overweight last year. He's even admitted it. DK Metcalf,
we have eyes.
Handy nonstop, but the dude is not going to show up out of shape. Like, the guy lives in weight rooms. Like, he is going to show up in shape. So, and I think his style has a chance to last longer too. Deebo Samuel's that after the catch maestro, taking a beating all the time, runs the ball. Just 2 totally different style players. And Metcalf has not had the injury issues. So I think that he would fetch, just on that accord, a higher draft pick. And then when you look at this free agent class and the draft class, like, the free agent class is not good for the most part.
Yeah.
There are going to be teams, if you get 2 or 3 of them in a bidding war, and I think that's what John Schneider probably today is thinking, hey, can I drum up interest now? Let's get 3 or 4 teams in here, and maybe we can get that first-round pick and a young receiver in return for a guy that's been an all-pro and is still only 27 years old.
It's interesting to me too, because you mentioned the durability piece of this has not played less than 15 games in his NFL career going back to 2019. That is remarkable. And in fact, he's only missed 3 games over the last 4 seasons total.
Yep.
And yet you look at the numbers, same number of catches as 2023 in 4 fewer starts. He was still productive last year. It's not like he was bad and Jackson Smith-Njigba took over the offense. He's still a really good player, 992 yards. So if, let's say, the Packers do acquire DK Metcalf, what does he do well? How would he fit into an offense with some other pieces that the Packers have? You don't have to get into the specific details of that, but just like what would they be trading for if they were going to trade for DK Metcalf?
You'd be trading for one of the 3 best deep ball receivers in the NFL. That's the first thing. Like, this guy can run by anyone with his 4.3 speed at 6'4", 230 pounds. It's insane watching this guy run. And he's also going to be able to provide the toughness over the middle. When he catches the ball, he can run over guys with that big frame. He's going to get after it as a blocker in the run game. And I know Green Bay, Matt LaFleur loves running the football. DK Metcalf gets fired up blocking. He loves it. And that's great with his size. So that's what you'd be bringing in. He's added some slot versatility to his game in his 6 NFL seasons. He used to just be strictly a boundary guy, but Sanjay Law, when he was the receivers coach, really got that out of him, where he turned him into a more versatile guy that you could move around the formation. What you're probably not going to get at this stage, and it's crazy for him being this freak big-bodied receiver, he has never been that guy that consistently wins those jump ball catches. And he's never been great on fade routes. So he does some things as a bigger receiver that you would not suspect, like he has issues with. And he hasn't developed that. His catching at times is inconsistent. He has times where he becomes a body catcher. So there's things that he just has not improved at enough to take that step to being a top 5 caliber receiver. I think he's definitely been top 10, but he just hasn't been able to quite get over the hump to be in that true upper echelon of receivers. And maybe Green Bay could get that out of him, or another team could get that out of him. But as productive as he's been, what he does well, he's extremely good at. He's dynamic. He forces defenses to have to bracket him because of his ability to win downfield, create after the catch. But he has some fundamental issues, and the route running, I think, is improved, but it's not his strength in his game. So you'd have to look at him as a guy. He's still going to be not a one-trick pony, but he's going to be primarily running vertical routes, and he's going to be looking to burn people because that's what he does so well.
More on DK Metcalf here with Corbin Smith on Locked On Packers. You've probably heard Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet healthy, happy. When you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products, all from your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food treats to toys to beds to grooming. It's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, small pets. Chewy makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth, vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. I think the Packers, by the way, would love that. If all he did was come in and just absolutely, like 2 years ago, I think he led the league at volume in yards per catch, 16.9 yards per catch. I mean, an absolute monster down the field. The Packers, they want to run the ball and take shots. Like, that's what Matt LaFleur would ideally like to be. Like, I think he could be a wide receiver 1 for the Packers. The question that I would have is, I think it's different when you cover someone day to day, when you watch them in the flow of the offense regularly. 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8. Is there something that you can say, okay, DK Metcalf can do this? Because you mentioned, not really a contested catch guy, not really someone who, at least to my eyes, Corbin, is just going to like route someone up. It's a slant on 3rd and 6. He's going to body up the corner and get you that first down. Is that accurate? What do you think of him as a bucket getter, 3rd down guy? Or is this the reason that Jackson Smith-Njigba was getting so many targets last year?
I think he's gotten a lot better in those situations, and he generally is an extremely difficult cover on slants and dig routes. He's gotten a lot better at those. And you can occasionally hit him on a curl route. He's, because of how dangerous he is downfield, corners give him cushion. But the issue is, and if you watch the 49ers, the first 49ers game this year, fans were throwing fits because they're like, Geno Smith threw an ugly interception. But you go back and you watch the film, and DK Metcalf was just drifting his over route way further than he was supposed to. And so those are the little things that just crop up too many times with him from a route standpoint. And, you know, Geno's going to take the bullet there. That's what he always does. But you could tell by the body language on the field that Geno's like, you were supposed to be cutting up here, and you just allowed that guy to undercut you. So those are some things that you have to deal with him, unfortunately, 6 years into the league. But I think his strengths more than make up for it. And I still think as a top 10 receiver pay-wise that he's worth it. I would just have reservations if he's like, look, I'm only going to play for 30+ million. I don't think he's that level of a player, and I don't know that he ever will be.
I think that has to factor into the compensation here too, Corbin. Like, what team, what are teams going to give up, understanding they have to pay him $30 million? I think that's going to be the Goldilocks zone that the Seahawks, DK Metcalf, and whoever this other team is going to have to walk, right? Like, if I'm giving someone $30 million, I want that to factor into the price. But at the same time, if you're the Seahawks, you're going, well, if you want to give him $30 million, we should be compensated because he's really good, right? Like, this is what makes something like this hard. So what do you think is fair value here?
I think at this stage that a second round pick and a good young receiver, that should probably be the sweet spot here. Now, if you're looking at a team like Green Bay, that they're second rounders in the back half of the second round. If I'm John Schneider, I'm saying,
but yeah,
I want 23, and we'll flip you a fourth on top of DK Metcalf. We'll give you a mid-round pick. Instead of saying, I don't want that late second rounder, because to me, there's a big gap there. So that would be, to me, the teams that can offer an early to mid-second and they have a good young receiver that they're willing to part ways with. I threw this example out earlier. I don't know that Buffalo would give up on Keon Coleman, who was a first-round pick, but he's inconsistent. I don't think that he's as good as DK Metcalf. Like, if Buffalo said, we'll give you Keon Coleman and we'll give you a third-round pick, I think John Schneider might actually consider that, because Keon Coleman's a first-round guy.
Yeah, interesting.
But every team's got different dynamics when it comes to trade offers. I would say with Green Bay, I don't think that Wicks or Dobbs are as good as what Keon Coleman's upside could be. I think they're good players, but I think that impacts your draft compensation. So all these trade scenarios are going to be different because of the value of the draft picks, the value of the players you can get back in return. And I'll even throw one other team out there. Put DK Metcalf back with Pete Carroll, and, maybe tight end Michael Mayer could be traded as part of the package. I think he'd be a really good tight end in Clint Kubiak's offense. And then maybe the Raiders give up a second or third round pick as part of that package. I can see some teams here that would make a lot of sense that are going to have interest.
And we've got the reporting that the Raiders are trying to trade Michael Mayer. So there's a potential fit there. You're going to make Packer fans upset now, because that's a really good idea, frankly. I think DK Metcalf in the Chargers, that's another team that you brought up. I think that makes all the sense in the world with Ladd McConkey being their slot guy. But for the same reasons, it would make sense in Green Bay, frankly, because you've got the strong arm quarterback, the team that wants to huck it deep. And I think the
Chargers have a young receiver. And I know Quentin Johnston's had drop issues. I know that he has not played to the level they expected, but I know that the Seahawks were very high on him coming out of TCU. They didn't have a need to draft him because he did a lot of the same things that DK Metcalf did. It hasn't translated to the league consistently. He still has had some chunk plays. But I wonder if a guy like that still got 2, maybe 3 years on his rookie deal, if you did the 5th-year option with him,
right?
A change of scenery with another deep ball savant in Geno Smith, would that be a deal that you can make? Maybe get a second or third rounder and Quentin Johnston. And I know a lot of fans were throwing a fit about that idea, but Quentin Johnston was a very good player at TCU, and he does a lot of the same things. Not as well, obviously, but those are the kind of options that John Schneider is going to be looking for here.
Last thing I want to ask you about with DK Metcalf is people can see the persona. He is an eccentric guy. You mentioned the candy, like all he eats is like 2 bags of candy a day, but he still looks like Adonis. Like, it's wild. They've seen the pacifier. He's leaned into this idea that he's, immature and all that stuff. But my understanding is he's friends with Geno Smith. He's a well-liked teammate generally. How do you factor in the personality piece of this? Because I look at it and I go, what would be really nice? Someone who cares a lot and someone who is a little bit volatile. Like, I kind of think the Packers, it's too nice a team. They need someone who's going to come in and maybe be a little bit of a chaos agent. And maybe I'll eat those words and who knows? But I just that's how I feel. Tell me why I might be wrong.
I'm torn on this because, and this has been an issue since DK came into the league. As a former coach, I do love those guys that push boundaries, because I think you have to have a few of those guys to be a Super Bowl winner. I mean, Philadelphia's got like 7 of them.
Seattle did it. I mean, goodness. Remember that team?
Seattle's Super Bowl teams. Those teams, I mean, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, and Marshawn Lynch. They got a fist fight in the locker room and won the Super Bowl. Yeah, you've got to have a few guys like that. And DK Metcalf has that type of personality. The issue has been the after the whistle stuff. Other teams have gotten under his skin, and he's not been able. He's been a little better about this, but he has an issue at times of being able to contain himself. And so he goes over that line a few too many times. As far as a teammate, I've never heard a bad thing from a teammate in Seattle. His coaches love him. To me, this has nothing to do with those relationships. And of course, there have been plenty of people saying, well, He wants a better quarterback to throw to him. He and Geno Smith are incredibly close. This has nothing to do with the quarterback. This is all business oriented. And look, he's 27. This may be the last chance he's got to get a massive contract. And Seattle, you can understand their point of view too. Like, I don't want to pay $31 million for a wide receiver, especially when he's been great, but not elite, at least statistically. Both sides you can understand, and you'd like to see a compromise there. But I just feel like I really think that him having this leak, he and his agent, this leak happening the day that Tyler Lockett's supposed to be celebrated, that might have been the thing that broke the bridge down. Like that is something the Seahawks are going to have a really hard time reconciling.
All right, thanks to Corbin for joining the show. Awesome to talk with him. Glad we got that. We will come back to this if and when the Packers make this move. I don't know. I did mention in passing, maybe yesterday even, that I thought that the Packers had sort of turned their attention in another direction because they thought, hey, the Seahawks are holding the line on this. This was the gift. So we'll see where they can go from here. We're back tomorrow. Much more here on Locked On Packers. Less than a week away now from the opening of the new league year. This is going to be chaos. And it is going to be, in the words of Martin Scorsese, cinema. I can't wait for it. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on all the social medias as well. Subscribe on our YouTube page. We'll be live for big stuff. If the Packers traded for DK Metcalf, we'll be live. If they sign Devontae Adams, we'll be live. If they sign Paulson Adebo, look, let's be honest, we'll probably be live. So come hang out with us over on our YouTube page. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. It'll be in your feed immediately after, so you can stay locked on Packers.